What do you do when you feel guilty for not praying? Do you just forget about it? Or you talk to someone? Or maybe you watch a movie? Or you drown yourself in other things? Well, let me tell you what to do instead. So if you're a believer, this has probably happened to you at one point or the other. So maybe you go for 1 day or 3 days or 5 weeks or even a whole year. Yes, it's possible without praying. And so the next time you want to pray, you find it's very hard to pray because you are feeling guilty. So it becomes like a never-ending cycle. And so you feel guilty because you didn't pray, and then you can't pray because you are feeling guilty. So if this is something that you experience frequently in your walk with God, in this video I'm going to be sharing 5 tips that have helped me or totally removing this cycle from your life. So if you're interested, you might want to stick around and keep on watching. So before we go into the 5 tips, I want to first state here that guilt you feel is not from God. That feeling of condemnation, of not feeling worthy enough to pray, that feeling of, I don't think God is willing to listen to me anymore, is not from God. Condemnation only comes from the devil, and there is a very fine line between conviction and condemnation. Yes, the Holy Spirit does bring conviction to our hearts, but conviction is simply you coming into an awareness that you did something that God is not pleased with, and that's where it stops. But condemnation is where your gaze starts to shift from what you did to who you are. So it's from God does not like what I did to God does not like me. I can never please God. God is disappointed with me. When you start to have thoughts like this is no more conviction, but condemnation. So conviction is not an attack on your sonship. Conviction will not have you doubting if you are still God's child or not. So always bear that in mind and put the devil in his place whenever he brings that feeling of condemnation to your hearts. So really, the first thing that I want you to understand is that no challenge is unique to you. I think the greatest weapon of the devil against believers is that it makes them to feel like their challenges and their temptations are unique to them. So you're going through something in your life and you feel like, oh, I'm the only one that feels this way, or I'm the only one that struggles with this thing. But there are thousands, even millions of other Christians out there who have passed through the same thing and have overcome it. But because you feel like it is unique to you, you are even ashamed or scared to let other people know about it. And so in the same vein, when you struggle with consistency in prayer, the first thought that comes to you is that, okay, maybe this Christianity of a thing is not just for you, or maybe you're not just cut out to be a good Christian. You feel like all those people that you look up to, maybe people that you see on social media or people that you even know personally, you look at these people and just feel like, oh, these people are always burning for God. So that means they never not feel like praying. They always feel like praying. They always enjoy praying. Their tongues never feel dry. It's all just always a smooth ride for them. But then that's a very big lie. I want you to know that anyone that you look up to, even the great men of God that God has blessed us with, each and every one of them at one point or the other has felt like not praying. The unique thing is not feeling like praying, but it now actually depends on what you do with that feeling. So when they don't feel like praying, they don't let their feelings dictate what they do. Even if they don't feel like praying, they will still pray. The thing is that you feel like they always pray because they always feel like praying. And I think one of the things that might have contributed to this in one way is because I feel like people don't really share their struggles. And well, you can't really blame them. Not everyone enjoys really sharing some particular details of their lives. But I feel one thing that would really help us all as believers is when we are open enough to share struggles and challenges that we face, even in this Christian journey. No challenge is unique to you. You are not the first person that is going to walk on this earth that does not feel like praying, that does not feel like reading their Bible, that does not feel like sharing the gospel with other people. Virtually every Christian has passed through this at one point or the other. But as I said, it's not about feeling in that way, but what you now do with those feelings. So the next thing that you should do in such a situation is to pray. Yeah, so you might still be feeling guilty. You might still feel like, oh, God is not listening to me. God does not even want to listen to me. But still, at that very, like the exact minute you realize that, oh, I'm not praying, just pray. Because really, what is prayer? Prayer is conversation with God. Prayer is talking to God, and God is also talking to you. So it's a dialogue. It's not something that you necessarily even have to separate yourself to do. So maybe if you are not even in a place where you can really separate yourself, maybe you're at work or you're at school, you can still say a word to God at that moment. That is still prayer. Even just sitting still and being sensitive to know what God is saying to you at that point is still prayer. Because as I said, prayer is a conversation. So you speaking to God is prayer, and God speaking to you is also prayer. I think most times people look at prayer more as you speaking to God, but God speaking to you is still part of prayer. So even you just sitting still and trying to listen to God and find out what He's saying to you at that moment is still part of prayer. So when you're trying to restore back your consistency in prayer with God, you don't necessarily have to first pray for 10 hours before you now feel like, oh, I have restored back all my lost hours with God. No, it doesn't always work that way. You're just starting out, taking it a little step at a time, just saying one word of prayer. And the next time you want to say something else, you find it easier to do because you just talked to God like 10 minutes ago. And so every 10 minutes, or every 20 minutes, or every 1 hour, you are just saying something to God, and you are being conscious of it, that you're actually speaking to God. You're not just speaking like, oh, I'm just speaking to myself. And so the more you do that, the easier you find it to pray the next time. So the next thing is to pray with a friend or friend. And this is why it is really good, as a believer, to have fellow believer friends, to have people that you can call and just be like, okay, can we pray together? I've not been feeling like praying in a while, can we just pray together? Because there's just a way that praying together with someone really stirs you up, even if you were not feeling like praying before. But when you are praying with someone, especially when you are praying with someone that also has a passion for the things of God, it just makes it a lot easier to glide back into that. And you could also even let your friend know that, oh, this is how I'm actually feeling right now. This is how my prayer life has been for a while. So your friend can even help you out in that. Probably your friend can call you every day. Have we prayed today? She can just, okay, let's just pray together for 10 minutes or for 30 minutes or even for 5 minutes. So having a friend to also even keep you accountable, that will also really help you. So the next thing that will really help you is to listen to songs or messages to stir you up. And especially songs, because I feel like songs, and I don't just even feel like it's actually the truth. Songs carry power, and songs can put you in a certain mood. And let me just give an illustration. So even like in marriage, let's say a married couple want to be intimate with each other, there are some songs that they would play that even if one of them was not in the mood before, playing such songs would just make them more open. And so in the same way, songs can actually make you feel like praying. As I said earlier, this is not to now make you start being dependent on your feelings, because you are not meant to be dependent on your feelings. But songs can actually help to bring you into that mood, quote and unquote, of prayer. And especially when you think about the fact that we are in a relationship with God, like seeing Jesus as your lover. So the same way lovers would play songs to get themselves into that atmosphere, you can also do the same with Jesus. Just see him as your lover, because he actually is. Now the fifth tip I want to share is take it slow and build over time. I think I pointed this out earlier, but I want to expatiate on it. So maybe the reason why you're falling out of consistency is because you are biting more than you can chew. Probably you have some people that you look up to in that sense, and they tell you that, oh, I pray for this amount of hours every day, and because you feel like you have to pray for that same amount of time to feel like you are doing something. But the truth actually is that progress is not built in a day. Rome is not built in a day. That stature that you see others have that you want to achieve, they didn't assume it in one day. The amount of time that I spent in prayer when I just started building my relationship with God is not the same amount of time I'm spending now. So in the same way, take it gradually. Let it be a gradual process. And of course, this is not now giving you a license to just spend maybe 2 or 5 minutes with God in a day and now say that, oh, that's the amount of time I can spend. You can't claim to love someone and just want to spend 5 minutes with them in a day. But at the same time, there is still the place of really understanding your progress. Not trying to spend this amount of time because you know someone else that is spending that much time, but really just building it and going out of your comfort zone little by little. And really, that's just how we build consistency in prayer. So I also want to just share a bonus tip which I think really sums it all up, and that is always remember that God doesn't get angry with you when you don't pray. A lot of times the reason why we actually feel guilty for not praying is because we feel like God is fuming at us when we don't pray. But the actual truth is that prayer is to our own benefit, not to God's benefit. So really, there is not even any reason for God to be angry with you when you don't pray. Like, it doesn't affect him in any way. But when you start to understand that everything that you do with God stems from a place of love, it won't be such a burden to you. If you are still seeing prayer as just one of those commitments or those duties that you have to do every morning after you wake up, you will definitely struggle with it. You will definitely find it hard. But starting to see it as a relationship, I mentioned earlier how that we're in a relationship with Jesus, we're in a relationship with God. So seeing it as, just like when you're in a relationship, especially when you just get into the relationship, and when you wake up in the morning, the first thing that I want to do is to speak with that person, is to know how they are doing, is just be with them. In the same way, seeing God as just that friend, that lover, when you wake up in the same way, you just want to spend time with him, you just want to say something to him, you just want to acknowledge him, you just want to hear from him. And honestly, there is still the place of building routines in these things, as I already said earlier, also doing it even when you don't feel like doing it. But the root of it is understanding that even when you don't feel like doing it, it is still love that pushes you to do it. Love is an action word, love is an intentional thing. Love is you doing something even when your feelings are telling you otherwise. So thank you for watching this video. I really hope it helps you. If you have been struggling with prayer and there is one of the tips that stood out to you, let me also know in the comment section. So thank you once again, and till my next video. Bye.